It's been a few weeks since we've given you a renovation update, and because we're not doing any of the work ourselves, we're very hands-off. So we don't have a lot of like the DIY vlogs that we've been doing with you guys recently. But a lot of you have been asking, how are we funding this renovation? And we're gonna get to that in a little bit when we talk about private lending. But first, let's give you a renovation update.
So this past week, we actually got a bunch done. We got rough framing, rough plumbing, and the beginning of HVAC. Down here is where the bulk of the work kind of happens. So right here, you can see this feed's gone, so it opens up nice into the kitchen. And then back here is something that like I'm super excited about because it's something that we want to do on our side in the future. But framing and plumbing for this small half bath is done. They've got the toilet set up and the washer and dryer hookup set up, and this wall framed up. And to be honest, there's a lot more room in here than I thought there was going to be. You know, glad it didn't really close it in too much. The HVAC guy actually showed up on Friday, so he's not supposed to start till next week, but he came early just to get a few things set up. He did run our lines for a condenser outside, and let me see. They did. So plumbing actually roughed in the waste and water lines for the sink. We actually moved it. It was on this side of the kitchen, if you guys remember, and we moved it here. We're gonna lower this window up, but I didn't even see that, so that makes me happy. Anybody that's worked on old houses knows once you start opening things up, it's just like a can of worms. You just start finding old damage, things from past tenants either not reporting, some water leaks, and that's exactly what we had. We had old water leak, and it was right underneath the kitchen sink, so you kind of knew it was from an old kitchen sink leak, which is something why we tell our tenants straight up, like, we want to know when you guys have problems, because we're managing and we know that those sort of things that just continue to occur over and over again and we never hear about it, so we're never able to fix it, cause permanent long-term damage. Just a good example of why you want to tell your tenants any little problems that they have, you definitely want to know about. Going hand in hand with the water damage issue, if you just look right here, you can see that there's a cistered up rafter right here, or floor joist, which will bring us upstairs. Come on. Rough plumbing and framing continued up here. Now, the first thing, that cistered joist that you were looking at from downstairs was because we had some old water damage from water coming out of the shower and going into that subfloor that they just never told the previous owner about. So this whole subfloor in the bathroom here, underneath the tile, was totally rotted. And it was so bad that the joist was actually rotted as well. So we had to reinforce that to make sure that the floor was nice and strong. But rough plumbing and framing is done up here as well. It looks great in here right now. As for the bedrooms and the second floor and third floor, there isn't like a huge difference. We do have one last closet to frame up, and it's this one in this back bedroom. But other than that, the second floor and third floor are done. HVAC's gonna begin next week, so they're gonna run their new lines, and then electrical will start as well.
So it might not really look like a lot has changed since we did a renovation update a couple weeks ago, but a lot of the stuff that has taken place is all really big CapEx items, which we feel so strongly about front loading these things, because once you start putting the sheetrock up, it now becomes more time consuming and more expensive to fix any issues in the future. So we just like to fix everything now to help make management a lot easier for me moving forward.
And one of these CapEx items I definitely want to point out because it's something that we usually change. And I don't know if you guys picked up on it, but this cast iron waistline right here is still in use, which usually that's something that we are tearing out and replacing with PVC. But we kind of had to weigh our options because in order to get this thing totally out, we would need to cut into our ceiling on our side in our kitchen to actually remove this whole thing so we could retie into ours, because this house only has one waistline. So we did take out all horizontal runs of cast iron and replace that with PVC. The only line left is this short, like maybe, I don't know, 9-foot vertical run. The verticals aren't as bad as the horizontals. If you have to make a choice of replacing all the horizontal runs. And the reason why I say it is because when you flush a toilet or a sink or your waistline's coming into it, the vertical run's gonna have a lot of gravity and momentum going for the water to come down. On those horizontal runs, it doesn't have as much, so things tend to get blocked up and catch that rusty crud that's on the inside. So if you have the choice, get rid of the horizontals, keep the verticals.
All right, so we're gonna go next door and we're gonna share with you how we're funding this renovation.
As you just saw, construction is well underway over there. So we thought we'd take a step back and talk about how we're funding the renovation costs.
We shared in a video a few weeks back that we'll be dropping over $80,000 on this renovation, and we'll be transparent to say that we don't have $80,000 just lying around. I mean, we don't even have close to $80,000.
So how are we paying for this?
Private money!
Private money is money lent to a borrower from a private individual. Now, don't confuse this with hard money, which is money lent to a borrower from an organized money lender who typically has a license to lend and thus has strict lending criteria.
Unlike hard money lenders, you typically can't just type into Google private money lender and expect good results. Private money is all about relationships.
In this section of the video, we're going to talk about how to find private lenders, how to structure the deal, how to protect yourselves and them, and details about transferring of funds and how to have a successful experience so they want to lend you again.
We will preface this by saying that a lot of what we know, we learned in Matt Fairclough's book, Raising Private Capital. So if you want a deeper dive into what we share, check it out, link in the description below.
And by no means is this any legal or professional advice. This is just what we do, and we're sharing in hopes that it's going to help you out.
Okay, so how do we find private lenders? Matt suggests in his book to make a list of anyone you think that has money. And he challenges you to think not necessarily of people who drive fancy cars and live in big houses, because that just really means they spend a lot of money, not necessarily that they have a lot of money.
So instead, who do you know that's been at their company for 20 plus years and has a large IRA account? Who do you assume makes a lot of money and drives an older car and lives below their means? This could be your parents, your grandma, coworker, a person in your Thursday night kickball league. Potential lenders are absolutely everywhere.
Once you have a list, don't just hit them up right away with a big question, because it's all about comfortability and the relationship. Know, like, and trust are the three key factors to this. So you want to start bringing the person on the journey with you.
So if you aren't already, start sharing details about your interest in real estate or the deals you're working on. You want to build credibility so the lending conversation doesn't feel so out of the blue.
And this doesn't have to be super direct. You can do this via social media or through a monthly email where you share photos of updates on your recent renovation or deals that you're searching. Think of it kind of as like a digital resume.
Once someone shows interest, we let them know that being a private lender is an option. We'd like to send them a copy of our what we call Invest With Us packet and a sample deal sheet.
The Invest With Us packet is an overview of who we are, what our portfolio and projects look like, and a brief summary of what the private lending process entails.
Then the sample deal sheet is, well, a sample deal that includes pictures of a potential project, information on the property, and the numbers like how much money are we seeking, at what interest percentage, and other term information.
This is a very, very important document because the purpose behind it is to get the conversation started and start prompting some good questions. Because when we have a real deal, it's going to look very similar to this one, and we're going to need that money.
So the sample deal sheet is the opportunity for the potential lender to marinate on it a bit. Perhaps bring it back to their spouse and have those personal financial conversations. And really just get them warmed up for when there is a funding opportunity. This is when you'll be able to talk about the process, what risks are involved, and what paperwork is going to need to be signed. If you want to download a free Invest With Us packet, click on the link below.
Moving on. So you have the private lender, you've got them warmed up, but I know you guys want the deets on funding terms and structure.
Everyone always wants to know about interest rates, so we'll start with that first.
And we'll also kick it off with everyone's most hated answer. It depends. We say this because everyone has their own goals and risk tolerances. If the potential lender isn't a huge investor and has their savings in a high yield savings account making 0.5%, then they'll probably be pretty stoked to make 4 to 5% on their money.
Whereas a riskier individual who throws $1,000 at Dogecoin every time it dips is not going to get excited for anything less than 15% and a point on their money. Then it also depends on the length of the loan. Generally, the shorter the loan, the higher the interest rate.
So there are a lot of factors to consider, and ultimately just needs to be a win for everyone involved. But to make sure you guys don't yell at us in the comments for not being transparent, we like to look for 6 to 8% with no points.
Then you have to decide on loan length. We typically do 9-month terms, and we've seen some people do 6 months, and some will actually do 2 years. It all depends on the deal. We like 9 months because we're usually doing single-family BRRRRs, which we buy, renovate, rent out, and refinance promptly after the seasoning period of 6 months.
Now, you can of course find banks who will do a shorter seasoning period, or you could do delayed financing, but we just usually do 6 months. And then this gives us 3 months of buffer before that balloon payment is due.
We do put in our terms though that we are allowed to repay the full amount with adjusted interest up to 3 months early. So if we happen to be super speedy, we can pay back the lender and save the 3 months of interest payments.
The next detail is payment, and there are 2 popular ways. One is interest-only payments each month with a balloon payment at the end, or no payments throughout the loan at all, and then the original amount plus the interest all at the end.
The latter situation is more common for shorter loans.
Yeah, so moving on to paperwork, and this is the part that I was so anxious about learning because I just couldn't find solid answers anywhere, and I was like, how am I supposed to convince someone to lend us money if I don't even know what the process looks like and I can't properly explain it to them?
So we read some books and ultimately ended up reaching out to our lawyer for help, which honestly should have been our first step, but you live and you learn.
So there are 2 main documents you would sign, a promissory note and a mortgage. The promissory note is the written agreement containing all of the details of the loan, and then the mortgage is the loan that's secured by the property.
So if you were to default on a loan, the lender has a position on the property and can enforce whatever recourse is outlined in the agreement.
And like we said, we got both of these documents from our lawyer, but you can also get them as templates in Landlord Law School, which is an online asset protection course that we're members of. And a link to that is up here and below in the description.
All right, so we got the lender, the term, the document, everything is signed, and we're ready to rock. But like, how do you get the money?
It's a good question. There are a lot of ways you could do it, but it could be as simple as the lender mailing you a certified check with the funds, or we could be a bit more formal and have the lender wire you money to the closing table if the money's being used for the purchase. There's really no right or wrong answer, whatever both parties are comfortable with.
Now that you've got that cash money, you can't just like ghost your lender. They just trusted you with a lot of money, so you've got to keep them in the loop.
And an easy way to do this is to send out an email once a week with updates on the project and photos of the progress being made. Even though they aren't equity partners in the deal, they still want to feel involved and they want to know where their money is being used and that it's being used properly. So when the deal is done and you've paid back your lender plus interest, see if they're willing to lend again.
Maybe, like take them out to dinner or for a round of golf and just talk about what their investing goals are and see if working together aligns with those goals.
There are so many more details and it would just be impossible to cover all of them in one video. So if you guys have any questions about the private lending process, please drop a comment below and we'll do our best to answer them. Or pick up Matt's book, Raising Private Capital. And this by no means is sponsored by him. We just really love the book and recommend it to everybody.
And him too. Matt's like an
Matt's
awesome
awesome.
So that's gonna do it for us today. If you found even a single thing helpful in this video, please like it, and if you want to see more, subscribe to our channel.
We love having you guys along with us on this investing journey, so we'll see you in the next one.